Hello there, welcome to NTV English News Bulletin. I am Bhavana Casey. In the beginning, we have the headlines. Central Committee meet of the ruling Nepali Congress being held today as well. Leaders in Central Committee called for policy convention. US says Iran planning to supply Russia with the drones for its war in Ukraine, adds Iran to train Russian forces to use the drones. Thousands of mourners pay their last respects to assassinated former Japanese Prime Minister Abe. Private funeral being held in a temple. And batting fails as Nepal succumbs to 40-run defeat against Namibia in the first match of the CWC League 2 series, also slips to 6th position. Welcome back. You are with NTV English News Bulletin. Now we have the news in details. The Central Committee meeting of the ruling Nepali Congress has continued today as well. The meet to begin at 1 p.m. at the party headquarters in Sanepa will continue discussion on various inter-party issues, including results of the recent local level elections and issues of the sister organizations. Various reports and proposals were presented at Central Committee meeting of the Nepali Congress during Monday's meet. Various central members, including senior leader Dr. Shekhar Koirala, had aired views in the meeting presided over by Prime Minister and Nepali Congress's President Sher Bahadur Deuwa. Visiting chief of the Chinese Communist Party (CPC's) Foreign Department Liu Qianzhao has held meetings with various leaders this morning. Liu reached the residence of CPNU-ML chairperson KP Sharma Oli in Balco to hold talks with him. During the meeting, the two leaders discussed the current political situation, bilateral issues, and communist unity in the country. Likewise, Liu is also scheduled to hold talks with chairman of Unified Socialist Party, Madhav Nepal, and senior leader Jalnath Khanal today. Earlier, Liu held meetings with Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuwa, Foreign Minister Dr. Narayan Khadka, and Mao Center Chair Pushpa Kamal Dahal. Liu arrived in Kathmandu on Sunday on a 4-day visit to Nepal, leading a 6-member delegation. He will return home on Wednesday, and this is Liu's first visit to Nepal after his appointment as the Foreign Department Chief. Now to next update, all the 10 local labels of Palpa district have been declared fully vaccinated. The declaration comes after 2 towns and the 8 rural municipalities of the district ensured the base for the regular vaccination to all the children. Chief at the district health office, Rajendra Giri, said all the local labels have been declared fully vaccinated after children aged till 15-month-old have been completely inoculated with the regular vaccine. With this update, time to go for a short break, but still to come we have. Welcome back. Now to the updates from the international front. Iran plans to supply Russia with potentially hundreds of drones for its war in Ukraine, some with combat capabilities, a U.S. official had said. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said information received by the U.S. suggests Iran is preparing to train Russian forces to use the drones. He added that it was unclear if Iran had delivered them yet. Drones have been integral to the ongoing war for both Ukraine and Russia. Thousands of mourners are showing up to pay their last respects to former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The private funeral of Abe, which is only open to friends and families, is underway at Tokyo Jojoji Temple. Following the funeral, the hearse bearing Abe's body will proceed through downtown Tokyo. The 67-year-old was shot dead last Friday while delivering a campaign speech in Nara in southern Japan. A weekend of political chaos in Sri Lanka stretched into Monday, with opposition leaders yet to agree on replacements for embattled President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his Prime Minister, whose residences remain occupied by protesters angered over the country's economic collapse. Crowds of demonstrators overran Rajapaksa's home, his seaside office and the official residence of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe on Saturday and demanded the step down in the most dramatic day of the three-month crisis. Leaders of the two opposition parties held talks on Monday but could not agree on their choices for President and Prime Minister. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has condemned all acts of violence and called for those responsible to be held accountable. In a statement, Guterres asked the stakeholders to engage in dialogue to ensure a smooth transition of government and find sustainable solutions to the economic crisis. With this update, time to go for a short break again, but still to come we have
53 ग्रेड को सर्वोत्तम सिमेन्ट अपग्रेडेड स्ट्रेन्थ का साथ जसले हुन्छ निर्माण अझ धेरै बलियो
सिल्की र स्ट्रङ कपालका लागि केमिकललाई भनौं नो प्याराशुट नेचुरललाई भनौं यस
मीठी मनोरञ्जन हरदम मनोरञ्जन म्याक्सिमम
Welcome back. Now to more updates. Hong Kong's leader John Lee on Tuesday defended plans to introduce a new virus health code that would use mobile phones to classify people as red or yellow and limit their movement. Hong Kongers have traditionally been sensitive about government monitoring. Lee insisted that the Hong Kong government will always employ measures legally and explained that the red and yellow codes would apply only to specific categories of the people. Currently, all international travelers must pay to stay 7 days in a government-designated quarantine hotel. Hong Kong still is attempting a dynamic zero-COVID policy, including mandatory mask wearing, use of isolation centers, and the quarantine for the travelers. Authorities in China's Henan province say they will start releasing money to customers who have had their funds frozen by several rural banks. The announcement came just a day after a rare protest in Henan's capital, Zhengzhou, turned violent. Payments will be made in batches from this Friday. The 4 banks that were the focus of the protest are believed to have frozen a total of $5.8 billion of the deposit. The Henan Banking and Insurance Regulatory Bureau and the Henan Provincial Local Financial Supervision Bureau said advance payments would be made to the customers through a local association. More updates line up on the other side, but before that, let's have what we have coming up next. A new law banning the construction of small hydroelectric power plants is a victory for the Bosnian conservation activists. They say the infrastructure damages fragile river ecosystems and plan to fight on to protect the unique waterways. A new electricity bill which passed last week bans the further construction of small hydroelectric power plants in the larger Bosnia's 2 semi-independent entities. It has taken a decade of court battles and street protests to reach this point. A construction boom saw 110 small hydropower plants built in Bosnia. Now to sports. Nepal has lost to Namibia by 40 runs under the first match held under the ICC CWC League 2 series in Scotland. Namibia had opted to bat first after winning the toss in the match where left-hander Basir Ahmad made his debut for Nepal. Captain Sandeep Lamisane took 4 wickets for Nepal as bowlers restricted Namibian lineup for 220 runs in 47.3 overs. While slashing the target of 221 runs, Nepal could only accumulate 180 runs, losing all wickets due to poor batting. batting. Following the defeat, Nepal has slipped to 6th position while Namibia has climbed to 5th. Nepal will next play Scotland in the match being held tomorrow. With this update, we come to the end of this English News Bulletin. But before we say goodbye, let's have a quick reminder of the major stories. Ruling Nepali Congress holding its Central Committee meet today as well. Leaders in Central Committee called for policy convention. US says Iran planning to supply Russia with drones for its war in Ukraine, asks Iran to train Russian forces to use the drones. Thousands of mourners pay their last respects to assassinated former Japanese Prime Minister Abe. Private funeral being held in a temple. And batting fails as Nepal succumbs to 40-run defeat against Namibia. The first match of the CWC League 2 series also slips to 6th position. Well, that's all we have in this edition of English News Bulletin. We'll see you again with next round of English Bulletin at 6 in the evening. Till then, have a great time ahead and do stay tuned with us. Namaste.